Alright guys, we're going to give you a little information on some Fox shocks. These are Gen 3, there's Gen 2 and Gen 1s out there. These are the newest ones. One way to tell on the Gen 3 is the bottom air valve is at a 90-degree straight in. That's the easiest way to tell. Also, all Gen 3s have the Kashima coating already on them. We're going to show you a couple basic things that we get questions about all the time and people get alarmed about all the time. The first is, if you can see this here, it's a low speed compression adjuster, and that's how you set your compression for the low speed. Just a flathead screwdriver, nothing crazy, and you just count the clicks in on that to set your low speed. Your high speed compression is outside, which is 17 millimeter. Same thing, counterclockwise softens it, clockwise stiffens it. Then you also have your rebound adjustment, which is located on the bottom of the shock. Same thing, counterclockwise, clockwise. Clockwise is going to slow your rebound, counterclockwise is going to speed it up. Then you have your air chambers on your Fox shocks. You have your evol chamber here, which is basically, if you had a spring shock, it would be kind of like the tender spring, works kind of like the tender spring does. Then you have your main chamber, which works like your main spring does. You always want to start with the evol chamber first. One little trick you have is you take a 14 millimeter box end wrench, these get on there pretty tight, and you can just loosen these up with the top of that 14 to get on them. Sometimes real tight, just depends. The new Gen 3 caps have an O-ring on them that make them tighter than what the older ones were. So you just loosen those up. Like I said, if you have a 14 open end wrench, works real well. Sometimes you can just get them with your thumbs, but if you use a 14, it'll help keep them from getting all scored up and stuff by using pliers or something. You want to take your gauge. You always want to make sure the shocks are off the ground whenever you do this. Don't set them on the ground, etc. And take your gauge. We already put some air in these shocks, so but you're going to take your gauge. You always want to start with your evol chamber, which is your top chamber. Set your evol chamber first. For most models, you want to be somewhere around 150 to 210 or so. This is a digital gauge here. It does not come with the Fox shocks. It's a little bit nicer than the pump that they come with. These will be available on our website for $69, I believe, and they're real nice to have. You don't have to have the dual side gauge. You hear that little bit of air escape whenever you take the pump off. Don't be alarmed. That's just the air that's in here to pressurize this. Evol chamber, obviously higher pressure. It's going to pump up much quicker because you're literally just filling this little bit of chamber. There's a piston in here, moves over to the main chamber, but there's a much smaller chamber in here that you're filling. Your main chamber is the bottom of the shock, and that's how you're going to be setting your ride height. So that's always off the ride height. That's how you need to put air in there. Usually going to be in the neighborhood of 35 to 60 pounds. So anyways, that's how you set your main there as well. Same thing, you might hear a little bit of air escape. It's coming out of that line there. If for some reason you'll hear some air, get some assembly lube that comes out of here if you just had them serviced. Not a big deal. We have another video kind of showing you that, but it's not a big deal. It's just assembly lube. It's Fox float fluid is what it's called. And then there's some grease, some buzzy, slick honey grease in there that can come out as well. If your air chambers come out whenever you unscrew your gauge, which can happen, all you need to do is take a 10 millimeter deep well, 1/4 inch, and go ahead and put those back in and tighten it up. That can happen, especially on the Gen 3s, even from brand new it can happen. So that's just basically a little overview of the Fox shock, kind of help you guys understand a little bit about how they work. They are definitely more maintenance. You need to have them serviced more often. I mean, all suspension should be serviced at least twice a year. On Fox floats, we normally recommend 3 to 4 times a year. Help keep your service bills down from expensive parts. Parts get expensive real quick. Air sleeves, about $115. Bodies, about $115. Bottoms, about $100. Tops, about $80. Resis, about $100. So if you don't have them serviced and they get nasty, you know, you can start tearing parts up and getting fairly expensive fairly quickly. That's it.